Muting myself. Hello, good afternoon. An absolute pleasure to be with you today. And so much has already been said by the panel about our future outlook. And I want to start by saying that I agree with the bleak news, and I have come to terms with that bleak news. It's what drives us to actually be more ambitious, to make a change. But I also think there's another perspective here that's really important that we do need to talk about, and that does need to be present in COP26. And that is what else we do other than just push for targets and other than just push for legislation. And I think this is where a role such as mine, I'm the Commissioner for Sustainable Development of Future Generations in Gibraltar, is really quite critical. Because yes, we do need to make our governments accountable. Yes, we do need to push these agendas, but we also need to understand that we have to create a social context and a social engagement so that these targets are actually being implemented, so that the people are supportive, so that people are engaged. And that's a little bit of what I want to talk about today. First, I want to say that, yes, we are talking about climate change, but actually the talk today is very much about climate breakdown. And we have been told we have 5 years until climate breakdown. More precisely, we have 1/5 chance that the annual global temperatures will be at least 1.5 degree warmer already in the next 5 years. So the scenarios Sir David is talking about, the reminder that Alicia and Tim have mentioned in terms of the evidence in front of us, I fully embrace. And in fact, I live in Gibraltar, and I'm not sure how many of our audience have actually visited Gibraltar, but we're a peninsula. We're surrounded by water. There is no escaping climate change here. Climate change is our daily reality. And the IPCC report suggests that along with the rest of the Southwest Europe, the ROC will suffer from increased risk of flooding due to sea level rise, hotter summers and wetter winters. The truth is that today, a spring day that is usually full of sunshine, it's a very wet day, and we're experiencing a spring that has had very heavy rainfall. Climate change is here for us already. So what is it we need to do? What do we expect from COP26? Yes, more legislation, more policy instruments, more ambitious targets, but also other measures. We need to be more creative in key priority areas. Adaptation and resilience is key. But are we truly aware of what the current and future risks are? Does the everyday person really understand this? Once we embrace that in legislation, once we commit to those targets, if we do, whatever they are, whether they be ambitious or not ambitious, there's still the element of implementation that requires us bringing people with us to implement these targets. But the truth is that, in Gibraltar, for example, we have gazetted the Climate Change Act. We've got 80% targets on reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. We've got very ambitious plans, national mitigation adaptation plans. But the truth is, climate change, climate realities are not in our conversations of the economy. They're not in our conversations when we talk about health and the pandemic. They're not in our conversations when we talk about education, competencies, learning. They are still very much perceived as the responsibility of the Department of Environment and Climate Change. They're not in our tourism strategies. They're not in our bunkering strategies. We have to mainstream this agenda. We need to talk about the science. We need to talk about the ethics. And maybe the intergenerational justice perspectives that we need, that are suddenly gaining ground, may be an inroad, a way into bringing this to the forefront of our conversations. And please don't interpret this as me trying to divert away from the climate science or away from the factual realities that embrace us. But it is so important that we bring in long-term perspectives as well as the immediate risks that are confronting us. And as guardian for the future generations, which is the role of my office, we are looking for bringing these into daily conversations. We are looking at that joined up planning across government departments that creates that culture of responsibility, accountability, and challenging business as usual. That's what we're trying to do. But there's a, if we do not engage with this level of conversations, the result is what we're seeing, perhaps here and beyond the rock, which is that people who are committed to climate change are focusing on energy efficiency at home, energy efficiency in government offices, lighting, agendas that are important, but perhaps missing the much bigger picture. It's more than recycling, it's more than being a vegan, it's more than energy efficiency, it's much more than reducing carbon footprints. We need to engage stakeholders in creating that far more strident vision of an alternative future that is in which carbon does not play a role. We don't know what that looks like. So we keep talking and talking and talking about having to decarbonize, about having to have a different type of world. But actually in the COP26 discussions and in the priorities that are facing us, there is nowhere, there's no space for the stakeholder engagement, for the creating of alternative visions that are realistic and that tell us what it looks like and therefore how we can progress to those alternative perspectives. We do have innovation and we do have elements of entrepreneurs presenting new technologies, but we need greater conversations that provide some depth, that provide some engagement, some positivity that can engage and motivate people to move to this more significant future that can actually not only be better for the environment, but actually better for our health, better for our economy. We visualize this? Can we detail this? Can we have those conversations in the road to COP26? And just to finish off to say, yes, I would love our governments to really wrap up the outstanding items so that we can fully implement the Paris Agreement. Yes, we would really like those promises to be kept so that developing countries can actually access those $100 billion that is necessary for mitigation and adaptation in those more vulnerable countries. And we need to raise our climate ambition, but please, can we have some space for detailing, outlining, engaging people in creating these alternative visions of the future where carbon has no place? We need those frameworks for understanding intergenerational impacts of climate change. We need those frameworks and incentives to create these alternative visions. And I leave it there.